Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron.
This Seeking Me Productions bring you another movie review.
Now, with this particular review, we're going to have to just span it not within the context of the one particular film itself, but in this case, all the films that are attributed within this particular series. And that series for which we're talking about is the X series.
Yes, X series. The trilogy, mind you, at the time of this video, was directed by T. West, independent horror director. Like prior to this, he directed a film called The Roost, and other independent, obscure horror films I'm pretty sure nobody have actually watched before.
And you know what? With that particular, point of view, he felt, or at least fit, right at home with the production studio for which he decided to go ahead and develop this film for, that being A24.
And A24, who is no stranger into the independent distribution route, has been slowly going up the ranks in credibility. Mm-hmm. And in recent years, at the time of this video, they even became major Oscar winners. Best Picture with Everything Everywhere All at Once, a very fun multiversal collage.
Probably one of the better concepts out there that dealt with the multiverse itself. But of course, A24's major, claims to fame at the end of the day deals with the horror genre. At least that's where it's got its most, its first, outing out there for a lot of.
Well, at least getting notice.
Yeah, notice. First and foremost, that with The Witch
or and Hereditary.
Exactly.
So, the X Trilogy, which encompasses with X, then Pearl, and most recently MaXXXine, is a trilogy that mainly dealt with the major themes of ambitions from humble beginnings, mm-hmm. and the two different types of paths a person will go towards the lengths and trying to achieve their goals.
Now, there is absolutely no way that we're going to be able to do this review and not address the bigger elephant in the room that deals with this particular series of movies, and that has to deal with the concept of the adult film industry being a major aspect, at least within the background, for things that set up why this story goes the way it goes.
All right. And we'll start off with an order of release of this trilogy, starting with X.
Again, we're dealing with individual storylines that revolve around individuals that work within the adult film industry, and that is, of course, very prevalent with one of the main characters that has to deal with the character of Maxine Miller.
Maxine Miller. She's known within this adult industry, but she's trying to achieve higher ambitions, probably becoming, getting out of the game. Mm-hmm. But she's stuck in this path. But working hard work will do wonders.
And she's with a particular group that has their own ambitions as well. Probably that, of course, that's going to push them even further within this industry itself, and probably definitely beyond. And one of the things that puts them on this platform, or at least the gears rolling in this particular film, is that they take this opportunity to go to the country area to try and make a new movie that's supposed to be even more ambitious than most of the other movies within that particular industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but when the people are getting ready, they rent out a farmhouse that still have the occupants in there that allows them to film their production. And what goes down in this film is both the making of said adult film, mm-hmm. but also the horror slasher homage.
Now, when you watch this movie, one of the major things that came to me, at least when I was watching it, is that how much it reminded me of the old style concepts of the grindhouse movies that used to come around. And it very much fit within that role, especially the way they decided to deal with the concept of the slasher in this movie. The direction that they do with this film and throughout the rest of the series is incredibly, it's inspiring.
Yes, especially with A24 doing mostly independent productions. They actually do a lot with very little will they have. You don't actually see the budget very much so because of, one, the look of the film makes it look like it's not only like it's a well done production as if it was made during that 1970s era, which this film takes place in, and what gives it a much even better highlight or step above the rest of most other slasher films is the commentary. The screenwriting in this film has some of the best metaphors and alliteration between the adult film industry and Hollywood itself, and how basically one without exists without the other.
It is so prevalent to understand, technically, yes, are they separate entities? True, but at the same time, when you get down to the very heart and DNA of what's going on between both, productions and studios and industries, it's very much a lot of the same jargons being thrown, a lot of the same concepts, and even to a certain extent, some of the same people are making those leaps and bounds. So it very much holds a mirror to the audience and to individuals themselves who's actually watching this and digesting it onto what really separates the two and why certain individuals are able to cut a break more than others.
Yes, and it very much like the driving force of this film not only is the director T. West, but the main actress Mia Goth, who she is already up like before this film series was a working actress in of herself, character actor. Not necessarily that much always getting spotlight and never actually really had a major lead role per se. So this is a film that this whole trilogy is like a very huge step forward for her career outside of the very meta sense in a way how her character journey goes.
I feel as though her acting in this series proves just how much of a heavy lifting and powerhouse she truly is. And like I said, knowing exactly which steps and which characters and which storylines she's actually juggling in the series, it's impressive to just witness.
Yes, and mind you, despite its very strong commentary on the industry itself, it's still very much also a horror film, and one of the ways in which it very much sticks it and keeps it in that horror genre is just how unsettling the whole film is from start to finish.
Oh yeah, a nail biter for real. And I gotta say, this, at least for X in general, had one of those scenes that literally still creeps me out to this day. And I still just, and that's like, it's like it wasn't even really meant to be a horror concept, or at least a truly horrific scene, aside from the fact of what is going on in it.
Yes, and it's mostly had to deal with the main antagonist of the film, who is also played by Mia Goth in some very heavy makeup. That's actually it's so good, and the acting, because she's able to distinguish herself between these two characters.
Do you honestly believe this is a totally different individual, doing this type of stuff?
And mind you, something that is carried out throughout each of not each of this one and the third one. That these are hard R movies, in the sense of the graphic violence, but also because of the adult film industry. Yeah, they do it enough to emphasize the subject matter.
Again, this movie is called X, and it definitely earns its X.
Following up with X is the prequel film that actually came out later in the same year with its release.
And we're talking about Pearl.
Now, Pearl is a prequel that actually tells the origins of the film's major villain from X, Pearl.
Mia Goth, again, is quite the phenomenal force.
In fact, this is basically the whole trilogy is a showcase of her talent as an actress.
Yes.
Now, with Pearl, still directed by T. West, Mia Goth actually has credibility as a screenwriter as well, and also producer credit. And you'll see how she really is defining how Pearl is very much similar to MaXXXine in her beginnings.
Yes, that hungry drive for wanting to be known, to be free of the the modernity of average life, or a life that honestly you just don't see yourself exploring. You want to be able to push out and have more for yourself, and that is very much the heart of who Pearl is, and how well that ended up becoming the monster that she eventually became.
Yes, and what strikes it different, like from what Pearl, from going from Pearl X to Pearl,
Mm-hmm.
is the production of itself.
Yes,
X being a 1979
grindhouse kind of movie, early /70 slashers, but this one it felt more of like a play, in itself.
or in a very sense, it's set in 1918, so many decades before X, but is done as if it was a period piece filmed back in the 1950s
Yeah.
with very like panoramic vision and technicolor splendor.
Basically, Pleasantville, but for the aesthetic horror crowd.
It is such it continues that unnerving, unsettling like tone throughout, because we're literally seeing this tragedy of
An individual who wanted to push so far, but having the world slam doors back in your face and keep you where you just don't want to belong.
yes, and like similarities to what we'll find out even more from MaXXXine, especially in that latter time.
Yeah.
Now, it mainly starts at home with a lot of how that humble beginnings kind of brings prevents them from like achieving like that set goal.
I feel it's like a major moral concept of the story that's evolving from this entire trilogy. Deals with the concept of being able to be okay with where you're at, or at least being able to find the humble concepts that's within you, but also the importance of having a stable and supportive group to back you up too.
As far as any type of criticism from X and Pearl, is kind of the downside of the mere fact that Mia Goth is such a highlight and powerhouse in both these two installments, despite the very serviceable and also appropriate performances that some of the other cast members do.
But moving on along into the series with MaXXXine, I would definitely say this was basically a crescendo of everything that was boiling to the surface.
But the destination is getting messy. Is messy within the third act of MaXXXine. But leading up to it, I would say is mostly a solid film that shows off not only the progression of T. West's ability of how he was able to progress the story,
but I would say also just how well he was able to direct it as well. This film heavily had some of the best transitions and
just overall editing
that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, and it's very much this homage to 1980s thriller, of which the time period is set.
Which basically has convinced me that if you want to make a really good horror flick, I'm totally convinced now that it needs to feel as though, just like these films feel almost as or at least directed and shot with the aesthetic of not being able to determine what time period is in.
Yeah, just like have a universal concept for your horror film as much as possible, so that danger can be felt. Now, in MaXXXine is like the ending of this trilogy, and is basically takes place right like a little years after
the events in X.
And MaXXXine is now on that cusp of getting out of the adult industry
and into trying to honestly find herself in the stardom of acting.
Yes, and we find out what catapults the plot of MaXXXine is that she finally is able to get that role, that first starting role in which to finally have that chance to make a name for herself.
But unfortunately for Maxine, the past has not yet, given up on her, and definitely seems like it is on her tail to try and dig things back up that honestly she would rather find, buried. But also, get yourself a really good lawyer, or at least a good agent, because my God, does that do wonders for you.
Now, MaXXXine, like each installment, like they had their own distinct feel, especially with the different time periods which they're set. MaXXXine,
very much that 70 early.
That is a 1980s crime thriller. MaXXXine is a kind of came out like during a transitioning period for A24 when they're trying to be more mainstream as well, despite being they trying to maintain that independent distribution.
Yeah, they're just now. I mean, they're still very cognizant of why they are the way they. What really is the DNA of what makes A24's films work. But now they're also trying to, because now they're seeing that other people are starting to give them a little wink or just a little side eye.
A notice.
Now they're trying to open up these stories to fill in that crowd. But I don't know if they're doing that at the detriment of the very heart as to why these films are so beloved.
Yes, because watching MaXXXine, from the at least first 2/3 of it, it kind of it slowly drifted away from being a horror film in my perspective, to the point that it as soon as the third act happens, not only are they trying to hurry it up and finishes the story, but the tone shifts to not a horror film anymore to more of
a thriller,
a revenge thriller.
And I felt, and then there was a lot of concepts that was thrown into this particular film. Also, that I felt was really interesting concepts that honestly I would have been really geeked up to be able to do, and they do come to play towards the third act. I just don't feel as though they were particularly earned in the way that they should have been, especially when you're dealing with concepts of the satanic panic that was going around during the 80s time period, the concepts of the adult film industry itself, and how individuals were dealing with the concepts of television and mass media and how it indoctrinates individuals into themselves.
Still, the core main themes of ambition is still very prevalent through from start to finish, and I would say what MaXXXine has above X and Pearl is that it did have benefit of a much more engaging and dynamic cast that affects the plot, especially within MaXXXine's life. From Giancarlo Esposito's playing her agent.
Oh, again.
He's actually is a slight different portrayal of what is his usual work. Kevin Bacon is a very intimidating private detective.
There's definitely something that I come to expect. Like when you see Kevin Bacon in a role or in a movie or a television series, he does his work. He's definitely just like Carl. You give him something to do, he's going to do the most with it, and he definitely does the most with his role in this one. And
especially also Elizabeth Debicki, who plays the director of the film that MaXXXine is trying to get her started in. She's very much great commentary on the female perspective in Hollywood, trying to carve out a path, a career, and basically giving MaXXXine not only that very encourageable advice, but also
it's the realism, the grounded concepts of just how treacherous things can be.
I would say that film probably will benefit if there's actually probably an extended cut. And it's just that MaXXXine does feel like in some regards probably a good 20 minutes of it is missing in the final and what could have been a more solid picture. So overall, for each installment, I'll say X and Pearl are great films.
Yeah.
They're solid. In fact, you can basically watch those two at any order that you want. It's just that those are very solid.
You're bound to have a great time exploring those particular films. For MaXXXine, Probably a good.
I would not recommend watching MaXXXine without watching at least X because it is a direct sequel to it.
And they do enough in the film to be able to let you know some of the points that follows into MaXXXine from X, but you won't get that same connection having had watched X in order to explore what MaXXXine has to tell.
I would say MaXXXine, despite its messy near third act, it would have been more within the same line as X and Pearl if it maintained the horror genre within the horror tone, but it loses that as the film progresses. But overall, the whole trilogy, I would say, is still great.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, unfortunately, MaXXXine is a better threequel than most horror third installments, but is a little bit. It's a bit.
It stumbles a bit at that ending, but it is what it is. I look forward to seeing where this director goes moving on from this.
And also Mia Goth. I've heard she has some very important upcoming films that's worth looking into. She's possibly in a Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein film.
Very interested in where that one goes. I'm interested with seeing anything that has to do with the original Universal monsters. I mean, that's just
Will Blade actually come out?
Your guess is as good as me.
But yeah, an A24 looking out for. They're a studio that's worth looking into.
There's always something to watch.
But yeah, again, this was our review for the X Trilogy.
As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell down there at the bottom for notifications if you want more content just like this.
And also look at our social media outlets of X, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day, and not enough time to do it all. So get on that. But I'm Aaron.
I'm Adam.
And this is Mystic Media Productions.
See you later.